My name was Khalid. I was an imam, a guide in the sacred city of Mecca, respected, revered, trusted to uphold traditions that are as old as time itself. Yet inside my heart, a tempest brewed, a hunger for truth that my soul could not silence. I stood on the precipice of faith, leading prayers at dawn, but my spirit felt shackled, imprisoned by dogma that offered no answers. It was during the Fajr prayer that doubt crept in, wrapping its cold fingers around my mind. I closed my eyes, lost in the rhythmic recitations, but all I could hear were whispers of a truth just beyond my grasp. A voice calling from the shadows, urging me to question everything I had ever known. I was drowning in an ocean of fear, yearning for light in a world cloaked in the familiar darkness of tradition. One fateful night, while seeking solace in meditation, I faced a harrowing accident that plunged me into a deep slumber. A coma, they called it. In that suspended state, I found myself in a desolate desert, enveloped in an unsettling darkness. Then, out of the abyss, a brilliant light appeared. It wasn't just light. It was the presence of Jesus. He spoke my name, unveiling a cosmic struggle that had evaded me all along, a spiritual war hidden beneath the surface of faith and control. Awakening from that surreal encounter, I discovered a shattered world. My family turned their backs. My community branded me a heretic. Yet, amidst the hurricane of shame and betrayal, I felt an undeniable pull towards the truth. I had witnessed another reality, one that beckoned me to embrace a faith that transcended borders, a truth that could not be silenced. Now I stand at the crossroads, armed with revelations that challenge everything I once upheld. I've begun to tread a path fraught with danger, but also rich in purpose. The yearning for spiritual liberation has fueled my resolve to uncover this divine truth and share it with those still ensnared by darkness. Join me as I unravel this journey of transformation. But before we dive into these profound revelations, take a moment to comment below. Where are you watching from? And what time does it read on the clock for you right now? I want to connect with those who seek truth. And if your heart resonates with the name of Jesus, subscribe now to Truth from Beyond. You won't want to miss the revelations that are about to unfold. Transformations await. In the ancient mosque in Mecca, the air was thick with reverence as the Fajr prayer began. The soft whispers of devotion filled the room, harmonizing with the echo of footsteps against the cool, polished marble. As an imam, I felt a deep sense of duty leading my congregation in prayer. The solemnity of the moment enveloped us, creating an atmosphere thick with tradition and faith. Yet, amid this powerful display of spiritual devotion, I could feel an unsettling emptiness clawing at my heart, as if something was deeply amiss. Despite the prayers surrounding me, I was haunted by a persistent question. Was this all there was to faith? My teachings and traditions, while deeply ingrained and respected, began to feel like a veil, obscuring a reality beyond my comprehension. The weight of my role pressed heavily on my conscience. I loved my community and the heritage I belonged to, yet something was quietly urging me to question, to seek the deeper truth that lay hidden beneath layers of dogma and doctrine. Little did I know an experience was just around the corner that would shatter my perceptions and guide me toward awakening. That night, as the call to prayer echoed outside, I was once again struck by a wave of doubt that I could no longer suppress. I fell asleep with a heavy heart, only to be thrust into a vivid dream that would change everything. I found myself in a vast desert, dunes swirling around me under a crescent moon. The wind carried whispers, bitter reminders of my own internal battles. I felt an oppressive weight, as if I were being pulled down by the very beliefs that had defined my life. And then the darkness consumed me until it opened into blinding light. In that light stood Jesus, radiant and compassionate, his eyes filled with understanding. "Ahmed," he spoke, initiating a profound revelation. In that moment, truths I had long sought began to unravel before me. I understood that the hidden agenda of the elite had manipulated our understanding of faith, weaponizing it to control the masses. As I looked into the eyes of Jesus, I saw the love that transcended all barriers, a love that shattered fears into mere dust. A truth I had never allowed myself to fathom. He showed me the patterns of deception that kept communities divided, how the spiritual war was about more than individual struggles. It was a battle for the very soul of humanity itself. A battle against a system that prevented genuine connections with God and with one another. Revelation after revelation cascaded through my mind, unveiling the complexities of society's struggles, political conflicts, social divides, and the suffocation of authentic expression. I began to feel the urgency of my mission to awaken others to this truth. "Rise up, Ahmed," Jesus urged me. "You have a part to play in this unfolding story of awakening." I felt the weight of responsibility settle upon my shoulders, profound, yet liberating. I understood that this was my calling, not just to be an imam, but to be a warrior for truth, challenging the deceptions that clouded the hearts of my people. When I awoke, I was met with the harsh reality of my inner conflict. The warmth of that divine encounter lingered, yet the doubts and fears crept back in. I could sense the potential backlash waiting for me as I contemplated sharing these revelations with my community. Would they understand? Would they embrace my newfound truth or reject me? The fear of being cast out loomed large, but I felt a determination hardening within me. I knew I had to confront the spiritual war that raged both within me and in the world around us. The truth I carried was not merely for my own salvation. It was for those still seeking the light, even amid the darkness. As I prepared to step forward in faith, I knew the battle for awakening had only just begun. As I led the Fajr prayer in the mosque, surrounded by the soft murmurs of devotion, I felt a profound emptiness deep within my soul. I'm Khalid, a respected imam known for my deep understanding of the Quran. Yet here I was, grappling with feelings of confinement in a belief system that seemed to be unraveling before my eyes. Each prayer echoed my hope for connection with God, but instead, I often felt like I was navigating a labyrinth of dogma and duty without knowing if there was a way out. The spiritual war raging inside me became more pronounced as the days passed. In my quiet moments, I found myself questioning the teachings I had dedicated my life to. Was this truly the path to divine truth? I observed the faces of those who worshipped alongside me, and while they wore expressions of peace, I sensed an undercurrent of fear, a fear of the repercussions that came with questioning the status quo. I felt torn between my duty to uphold our traditions and my burning desire to seek a deeper understanding of God. Memories of my childhood flooded back, filling me with nostalgia for a time when faith felt pure and untainted by the complexities of life. Yet, as I grew older, the weight of expectation began to suffocate that simple faith. Then one fateful night, my life changed forever. I fell sick suddenly, unable to shake off the fever that clouded my consciousness. As I drifted in and out of awareness, I was thrust into an unfamiliar realm, a vast expanse that felt both comforting and terrifying. In that ethereal space, Jesus appeared before me, radiant, loving, and filled with an understanding that penetrated the depths of my being. "Khalid!" he called with a voice that resonated through the void. In his presence, I was overwhelmed by revelations that shattered every preconceived notion I held regarding faith and truth. During our encounter, Jesus revealed the hidden agenda behind the elite, the manipulation of our beliefs to maintain control and perpetuate division. The spiritual war was not just about individual faith, but a battle for the very essence of humanity. I witnessed the deception that had kept entire communities in darkness, bound by fear and blinded to the love that transcended all barriers. His message was clear. Awakening was necessary, but the responsibility fell upon those who had seen the light. I understood that I had to face the repercussions of sharing these truths, but the urgency to do so thrummed in my veins. When my eyes opened again to the reality of my surroundings, I felt a stark contrast between the awakening I had experienced and the confines of my daily life. The familiar walls of the mosque seemed to close in on me, heavy with expectation. I had witnessed the revelation of truth, but the fear of being ostracized for daring to challenge long-standing beliefs loomed large. Yet, I couldn't ignore the divine calling that urged me to rise against the deception. I began to realize that my journey was not merely personal. It was a collective awakening waiting to happen. Each step forward would require courage, faith, and an unwavering commitment to sharing the truths that Jesus had entrusted to me, even if that meant standing alone in a world filled with shadows. As I stood in the Grand Mosque during Fajr prayers, the air heavy with devotion, I found myself engulfed in an overwhelming sense of void. The solemnity surrounding the ritual was palpable, yet as I led the congregation, a silent turmoil bubbled beneath the surface of my heart. Each prayer echoed the faith of my community, yet something deep within me felt disconnected. I was trapped in a cycle of ritual without true understanding. Even as I recited the words with conviction, doubt began to gnaw at my spirit. Was religion merely a tool to control the faithful, perpetuating a hidden agenda that the elite managed from behind the scenes? I had devoted years to studying the Quran, teaching the principles of our faith with pride. However, my teachings became tattered under the weight of my questioning. The notion that our beliefs could be manipulated to maintain power felt like a betrayal, twisting my understanding of spirituality into something dark and deceptive. As the prayers continued, a tension filled the room, an unspoken acknowledgement that perhaps many of us were standing on the precipice of awakening, yet bound by the chains of conformity. This spiritual war was not just within me. It was deeply embedded in the hearts of those around me. That night, as I returned home after a day filled with fervent prayers, I fell into a restless sleep. The doubts I felt during the day crept into my dreams, warping them into visions of desert landscapes. In these dreams, I wandered through desolate sands, a traveler lost in a barren desert of my own making. It was in this otherworldly state that I encountered Jesus. His presence was unlike anything I had ever experienced, radiant and full of compassion. "Khalid," he spoke softly, his voice resonating through the emptiness. In that moment, I felt a warmth enveloping me that brought a sense of peace I had longed for. As I engaged in this ethereal conversation with Jesus, revelations flooded my mind. He unveiled the truth of how the elite used religion as a means of control, a tool to manipulate the beliefs of the masses with a facade of virtue. The spiritual war I felt within me became clearer as I saw the broader implications of our societal struggles, how wars were fought not just in distant lands but in the hearts of individuals perpetuated by deception. I realized that these hidden agendas were designed to fracture communities, imprisoning minds in fear and compliance, preventing the truth from flourishing. When I awoke, the reality of my life felt stark and overwhelming. The mosque, filled with echoes of prayers that once felt comforting, now seemed oppressive. I carried the weight of my encounter with Jesus, intertwined with the urgency to share what I had learned. However, the fear of what rejection might bring loomed large in my mind. Would my community refuse to accept these revelations? Would they cast me out as a heretic? Yet deep down, I felt compelled to rise against this deception, knowing that my awakening could lead to liberation not only for myself, but for others ensnared in the same struggle. I knew the journey ahead would be fraught with difficulties, but the mission to share the truth was calling me, urging me to step boldly into the light and fight for the awakening of those still lost in darkness. One fateful night, as I immersed myself in meditation, seeking solace and clarity from the weight of expectations as an imam, everything changed in an instant. The world around me seemed to fade away, cocooning me in a silence that felt both reassuring and foreboding. But just as I glimpsed a light at the end of my mental struggle, pain suddenly erupted, sharp and blinding. I remember collapsing to the floor, a jarring clash of senses that sent me spiraling into darkness. My conscious thoughts echoed through that void until they were silenced, and I slipped into a deep coma. During that space between life and death, I found myself wandering in a vast, oppressive desert. The sun beat down mercilessly, and though I could feel the heat, there was an unsettling chill that coursed through my veins. In the distance, I saw a brilliant light cutting through the darkness, a light so pure and vibrant that it drew me in like a moth to a flame. As I approached, it gradually took the form of a figure, Jesus, radiating an energy that was both warming and overwhelming. I felt both awe and trepidation as I stood before him, knowing that this was a moment of reckoning. "Welcome, Khalid," he said, his voice gentle yet firm, resonating deep within my heart. In that moment, I felt exposed, as if every insecurity and doubt was laid bare before him. But rather than judgment, I sensed an ocean of understanding. Jesus began to share revelations with me, insights into the spiritual war that raged not just within my soul, but across the world. He unfolded the truth of how the elite had long manipulated faith, twisting it into a deception designed to control and suppress the masses. The very doctrines I had devoted my life to, while containing fragments of truth, masked deeper realities that few dared to confront. I was shown the struggles of society, the wars waged not only in physical realms, but those fought in hearts and minds. I saw how fear fueled division and dissent, cultivating an atmosphere where genuine awakening was stifled. It was as if I were witnessing the threads of history unwinding and revealing a dark tapestry woven with the struggles of countless souls. Each revelation shook me to my core. I had felt imprisoned by the expectations of my role, bound by a system that had long kept me from the divine truths of love and freedom that Jesus embodied. As the visions unfolded, it became clear that the time for my awakening had come. "You must spread this truth," Jesus urged, a sense of urgency in his tone. "You have the power to ignite others from their slumber, to challenge the deception that has kept them divided." I felt the charge of responsibility overwhelm me, my spirit igniting with a fierce determination. But with it came the stark reality of the cost I would have to bear. Would I face loneliness, rejection, the scorn of those I once called friends and family? Would I be accused of heresy for simply pursuing a deeper connection to God? These fears clawed at me, but I also felt an insatiable hunger for the awakening that Jesus promised. Each moment spent in his light filled me with the desire to return to my life, armed with the truth I had been blessed to witness. Suddenly, the desert around me faded away as I opened my eyes, gasping for breath in the real world. The memories of that encounter with Jesus clung to me, vivid and transformative. Though I felt a sense of peace and purpose, the road ahead loomed large with uncertainty and fear. I knew that I could no longer walk the path of conformity, nor remain silent in the face of the spiritual war I had come to understand. I felt the urgent calling to share my revelations with my community, to be a beacon of light that could guide others through the darkness of deception. As I stood on the precipice of a new life, I grasped the enormity of the challenges ahead, but felt an unwavering conviction that the truth I carried was meant to shine brightly, illuminating the path for those still lost in the shadows. When I awoke from my encounter with Jesus, everything felt different. The warm glow of that divine light began to fade, and as the reality of my life seeped back in, so did the heavy burden of guilt and fear. I had received revelations that shattered my world, and now I was branded a heretic in the eyes of my family and community. The echoes of their condemnation followed me, a constant reminder of the cost of my awakening. The very people I had spent my life serving turned away from me, their disappointment palpable, leaving me grappling with loneliness and despair. I fought against the tide of shame as I navigated the streets of my village, each face a reminder of what I had lost. The familiar sounds of prayer that once brought me comfort now stung with the ache of rejection. My parents, once filled with pride, expressed their sorrow through hushed conversations and sideways glances. I could see the fear in their eyes, fear that I had strayed too far from the path. This fear was not just for me. It was rooted in a deep-seated belief that questioning our faith was akin to damning oneself to an eternity of suffering. I understood their fears, yet my heart was drawn toward the truth that Jesus had revealed to me. Days turned into weeks, and I could feel the pull of my quest for truth, battling against the societal disapproval that closed in around me like a tight fist. Each conversation I had with those who once embraced me became a tightrope walk, balancing my newfound convictions against the risk of further alienation. I desperately wanted to share my story, to illuminate the hidden agenda I had witnessed, the way the elite whispered deception into our lives, manipulating our beliefs to maintain control. But with every attempt to engage, I encountered resistance, the words slipping through my fingers like sand. The burden of isolation became heavier, yet deep down, a spark of resilience kept me pushing forward. At night, my mind often echoed with the lessons Jesus had imparted during our encounter. I reflected on the spiritual war raging in the world where love and fear collided. I realized that this was not just about my journey. It was about awakening others who remained trapped in a cycle of deception. I had seen the beauty of awakening, and I felt a divine urgency to help others discover that same freedom. Even as doubts clawed at my resolve, I began to seek out individuals who were willing to listen, people who felt the same stirring in their hearts, who also sensed a deeper truth beneath the surface of tradition. With every connection I made, I could feel the power of our shared experiences strengthening our bonds. We explored the struggles surrounding us, wars rooted in fear, political divides fueled by misinformation, and technology that often served the elite's interests more than those of everyday people. As we gathered in hushed tones, I found a renewed sense of purpose in sharing not just my journey, but the larger narrative of awakening that we were all part of. I knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, yet the truth we sought was far too precious to keep hidden. Each moment spent with fellow seekers reminded me that we were united in this spiritual war, ready to rise against the darkness that sought to snuff out the light of love and understanding. Driven by a gnawing desire for understanding, I began a clandestine journey into the heart of Christianity. Nights that used to be filled with the quiet contemplation of my Islamic faith were now consumed with videos and scripture that challenged everything I had ever known. I found myself watching personal testimonies from individuals who had undergone profound transformations, their stories echoing my own struggles with an unsettling emptiness. Each account stirred something deep within me, igniting a flicker of hope alongside the shadow of fear about what pursuing this new path might cost me. As I delved deeper, the Bible became both a source of comfort and a catalyst for change. I felt each verse resonate within my soul, offering insight into the nature of love and the grace that Jesus extended to all who seek Him. Here was a revelation that contrasted sharply with the hidden agenda I had come to recognize in the teachings I once held dear. The stories in the Bible spoke of liberation rather than control, of connection rather than division. This newfound perspective was exhilarating but terrifying, as the implications of my exploration rippled through my consciousness. The duality of my existence became starkly apparent. I was living a double life. By day, I was Khalid, a respected imam, devoted to guiding my community in traditional teachings. By night, I was simply Ibrahim, a seeker of truth, grappling with my fears and doubts in secret. I longed to discuss these revelations with someone who would understand, someone who had ventured down this path of awakening. And so I began to seek out others who might share similar experiences, those brave enough to question the very foundation of their beliefs, and find solace in the truth I was discovering. Eventually, I encountered a community of individuals who had walked the same road, and there, I found a sense of belonging. We shared our journeys over quiet conversations, recounting the pressures of societal expectations that loomed like a dark cloud over our spirits. The warmth of their acceptance contrasted sharply with the fear of losing my cultural identity. I felt lifted by their stories, encouraged by our collective realization that the spiritual war we faced was not solely internal, but a battle against societal norms that sought to silence the truth. Yet even amidst this newfound solace, the fear of repercussion lingered. The risks were palpable, and I could feel the weight of my decisions bearing down on me. Would I lose my family, my friends, my homeland? The thought of being ostracized haunted me day and night. While I felt the exhilarating pull of the truth, I also wrestled with guilt and the pressure of expectations. The awakening was undeniable, but the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty. I needed to prepare myself to become a voice for the truth, to navigate the complex web of faith and conviction in a world riddled with deception. With every ounce of courage I could gather, I resolved to step forward, ready to challenge the confines of my past and reveal the liberation I had found through Jesus. As I prepared for my secret baptism, I was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. The gravity of this decision weighed heavily on my heart, yet there was a profound sense of purpose that accompanied it. Having witnessed the light and truth that Jesus offered during my near-death experience, I knew I could no longer live in the shadows of doubt and fear. This moment was not just about stepping into a new faith, but about publicly declaring my commitment to the awakening I had long sought. The path I had chosen was fraught with risks, losing my family, my friends, and all that I had known. But the call to be true to myself was too powerful to ignore. The day of the baptism was set against the backdrop of my internal struggle. I arrived at a secluded location, surrounded by believers who shared similar experiences, all seeking the same liberation from the constraints of their pasts. As I stood there, enveloped by the warmth of their support, I felt both terrified and exhilarated. This was a spiritual war I was joining, one that forced me to confront the very deceptions that had kept so many of us in chains. I could sense the weight of every decision made before this moment, the sacrifices endured, and the fear conquered. I walked toward the water, heart racing as the reflection of the sky danced on its surface. When I was baptized, it felt like a cleansing of my very essence. As the water enveloped me, I remembered the powerful revelations Jesus shared. While submerged, I could almost hear his voice whispering promises of transformation and love. I emerged from the water, not just drenched, but renewed, invigorated by the truth that I had embraced. In that sacred act, I felt a tangible shift within me, a shedding of old beliefs that no longer served my soul. I was no longer just Khalid, the imam caught in a web of expectation. I had become Ibrahim, a seeker of truth standing firm on the front lines of a spiritual awakening. However, the exhilaration I felt was shadowed by the looming dread of societal disapproval. I knew that returning to my community would mean facing the consequences of my choices. As I dried off and joined my fellow believers, I grappled with anxiety over their reactions. Would they accept me, or would they see me as an outcast? The risk of losing my family and my place in their hearts weighed heavily on my mind. Every person I had once known seemed to flash before my eyes. Friends who once embraced me now likely to turn away in disbelief. Each bond felt like a thread unraveling, and the overwhelming fear of rejection threatened to engulf me. Yet amidst this turmoil, I clung to the hope that had driven me to take this leap of faith. I recalled the urgency of the spiritual war I had come to realize. The revelations about the hidden agendas of the elite and how they manipulated our faith echoed in my mind, a clarion call to fight against the systems that kept us divided and controlled. I sought to be a voice for those still caught in fear, those who needed to hear the ultimate truth, that love and acceptance were the path to awakening, not the chains of dogma. With every beat of my heart, I resolved to share my story, to illuminate the path toward freedom for others, and to dismantle the barriers that separated us from the divine connection we all inherently deserved. As the Fajr prayer rang out, my heart felt heavy, entwined in a web of doubt and confusion. I am Khalid, an imam revered by my community, yet I found myself grappling with an emptiness that haunted my soul. Every syllable I recited felt increasingly hollow, a mere echo of a faith that I had devoted my life to. It was as if I was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into the abyss of my beliefs, and the whispers of questions began creeping in. What if the very teachings I upheld were not the absolute truth, but veils of deception, crafted to keep us bound to a hidden agenda orchestrated by the elite? No matter how I tried to focus on the prayers, the tumult of thoughts consumed me. I felt trapped within a system that preached devotion, yet failed to nurture a genuine connection with God. Night after night, I lay awake, tormented by vivid dreams that dragged me into a swirling desert of desolation. It was in these moments of despair that a profound event occurred. During a routine day, a sudden illness struck me down, leading to a moment that would change my life forever. I slipped into a coma, and when I crossed that threshold between life and death, everything shifted. In that surreal state, instead of darkness, I found myself enveloped by a brilliant light. Before me stood Jesus, emanating warmth and love that pierced through the layers of my doubt. "Khalid," he called, and those words struck me like lightning. In his presence, every fear I held melted away, replaced by revelations that unraveled the very fabric of my understanding. He opened my eyes to the spiritual war playing out not only within me but across the globe. War fueled by deception, where leaders manipulated faith to foster division. I saw how corrupted belief systems maintained power and control, shackling millions in a cycle of fear and ignorance. As we stood together, Jesus imparted truth after truth, illuminating the hidden agendas that propelled societal conflicts and kept communities at odds. I realized how the elite thrived on the chaos, managing narratives that pitted us against one another while concealing the profound love and acceptance that could unite us. The awakening I experienced suddenly became more than personal. It was a call to arms, urging me to rise and challenge the silence surrounding our struggles. The revelation that each of us held power to effect change reverberated in my heart. When I finally awoke, the memories of that encounter clung to me, a bittersweet reminder of what I had witnessed. I felt transformed, yet the reality of my life weighed heavily on my shoulders. My role as an imam now felt complex. The very community I had served with pride could likely reject me if they knew the truth of my experience. The fear of backlash intensified, yet I felt an urgency to spread the message Jesus had bestowed upon me. However, I understood that this path would be fraught with peril. I envisioned the potential fallout from my quest for truth, isolation from loved ones, being labeled a heretic or worse. But despite those risks, the calling to help others awaken was a fire that I couldn't ignore. I was compelled to traverse this treacherous road, determined to shine light on the truth and combat the spiritual war that held so many in captivity. In an act of courageous defiance, I made the decision to leave my home. The weight of my responsibilities as an imam had grown unbearable, especially after that profound encounter with Jesus during Hajj. I felt a sense of liberation wash over me as I prepared to step into the unknown. Changing my name was a symbolic gesture, signaling my commitment to the new life I was embracing, one of truth, awakening, and ultimately, service to others. The act of leaving was both exhilarating and terrifying. There was no reverse gear on this path, only the vast desert ahead, echoing with the stories of those who had wandered before me, searching for something more. As I walked into the desert, the sun blazed down upon me, its heat a physical reminder of the spiritual war I was entering. Each step felt loaded with purpose. I reflected on the path that had led me here, years of studying the Quran, leading prayers, and trying to fit into a system I now recognized as a mechanism for control. I had encountered the hidden agenda of those in power, people who wielded religion as a tool to manipulate the faithful. The truth I discovered shattered the illusions surrounding my beliefs, revealing the broader deceptions baked into our daily lives. In the solitude of the desert, I began to feel the pull of something greater than myself. It was as if the Holy Spirit was guiding me, challenging me to confront my fears and doubts. I pondered the implications of my journey, aware that I was now a voice of dissent against a narrative many held dear. Every memory of my family stirred feelings of guilt and sorrow. Would they understand my need to break free from the chains of tradition? Or would they see my quest for truth as betrayal? The pain of that uncertainty cut deep, but it also fueled my resolve. The mission to spread the message of love and acceptance, to serve as an advocate for those still trapped in the shadows of deception, became my purpose. As I ventured deeper into this new reality, I connected with others who also felt the urge to awaken. We gathered under the stars, sharing our stories, our fears, and our hopes. Each testimony was a beacon, illuminating the darkness around us. Together, we spoke of our experiences and the revelations we had received. The fragments of our narratives began to weave a collective understanding, a tapestry of enlightenment that stood in stark contrast to the manipulation we had witnessed. This community became a sanctuary where love was our foundation, and the truth we sought was sacred. Every encounter filled my heart with courage, but I knew the path ahead was fraught with challenges. The potential backlash from my former community hovered like a dark cloud, a constant reminder of the dangers I faced. Yet, as we discussed the realities of the spiritual war, I felt the urgency of our mission to speak out and challenge the elite's deception. Through education and dialogue, we aim to empower others to break free and seek their own truths. The responsibility felt immense, but together, we were determined to rise, ready to illuminate the darkness surrounding us and foster an awakening that demanded to be shared across the world. As I closed my eyes, I could almost glimpse the path laid out before us, a vivid continuum of faith and rebellion intertwined in a greater narrative that was just beginning to unfold. Years later, I've made a life in a new community, one that embraces truth seekers from all walks of life. After my journey of awakening, I found joy in sharing my testimony, recounting my experiences and the revolutionary truths that transformed me. Each time I spoke about my encounter with Jesus during that pivotal moment in Mecca, the emotional weight of my story ignited a fire in others. I watched as people leaned in, captivated by the hope that blossomed from my words. I realized that sharing my journey was not just about my own liberation. It was about helping others recognize the potential for their awakening as well. The laughter and camaraderie in our gatherings became my new heartbeat. I had traded the weight of loneliness and rejection for a vibrant community that celebrated growth and inquiry. We shared meals, prayers, and the struggles of our pasts, each story revealing how we had all faced a spiritual war in our own ways. The more I listened, the more I understood that we were not alone in our battles against the deception spun by the elite. Our discussions echoed the challenges we faced, the wars that raged not only across continents but within our hearts and homes, fueled by fear and misinformation. It galvanized our resolve to seek the truth fiercely and openly. Yet amidst these joys, the hope of reconciling with my biological family lingered in the shadows. I would often find myself lost in thought, imagining the faces of my parents and siblings. Would they ever accept the path I had chosen? Or would my new beliefs forever cast me as an outsider in their eyes? The longing for acceptance gnawed at me, entwined with guilt for leaving behind the traditions we had held dear. I've come to understand that my awakening does not diminish their beliefs. It merely represents my journey toward greater truth. I prayed for them often, wishing they could see the love and freedom that Jesus had shown me. As I continued to share my testimony and embrace this new life, challenges emerged that tested my faith. Doubt crept in, particularly during quiet moments when the fear of societal rejection resurfaced. The spiritual war we were engaged in was relentless. Each encounter with someone who dismissed or ridiculed my beliefs brought waves of anxiety. Nevertheless, these moments became opportunities to further fortify my resolve. I learned to hold my head high, to stand firm in the truth I now carried. In sharing our collective stories, I sought to provide hope, to illuminate the way out of the darkness for those still ensnared by deception. The urgency to spread the awakening was undeniable. We gathered together to strategize how to reach others who, like me, felt trapped within their beliefs, but longed for something more profound. We spoke of the importance of love in our mission, the need to build bridges rather than walls. As we navigated the complexities of truth and faith, I felt an unyielding determination to confront the hidden agenda I had come to recognize. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, yet I knew it was crucial to forge ahead, armed with the love and truth that Jesus had revealed to me. As we prepared to face whatever came next, the conviction within me grew stronger, urging me to push through the obstacles that lay in our way. Now that you've journeyed through my story, I find myself compelled to ask you, how does your heart resonate with the whispers of doubt and the call for deeper understanding? In this complicated fabric of life where faith often feels both a refuge and a prison, have you ever found yourself longing for a truth that transcends mere tradition? Because I assure you, there is a powerful awakening happening in the shadows of our society, and each of us plays a part in this cosmic dance of light and darkness. Having faced the transformative embrace of Jesus, I cannot help but reflect on the spiritual war that rages within and around us. It's a struggle for authenticity amidst a sea of control, a battle against the narratives crafted by those who seek to keep us divided and fearful. The revelations I witnessed have unearthed a profound urgency in my soul, a calling to awaken others to the love and freedom that God intends for all. You, too, are woven into this grand tapestry of truth, and your journey is vital. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. What experiences have shaped your understanding of faith? Have you felt the stirrings of awakening in your own life? Your insights matter, and together, we bridge the gaps that keep us apart. Remember, you're not alone in this quest for clarity amidst clouds of confusion. If the awakening I've shared has ignited something in you, don't forget to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. The revelations on the horizon promise even greater illumination, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Join us as we peel back the layers of deception, striving to recognize the light that lives within each of us. As we part ways for now, know that I am Hamza, and I stand with you on this path of discovery. Remember, every moment we spend seeking truth is a step out of darkness and into the radiant light that calls us all home. Together, let's continue this journey forward, with hearts open and spirits awakened.